What's up, everybody? My name's Big Cam and welcome back to another Comically Boston breakdown episode. And we were just breaking down week to week the HBO series House of the Dragon, and now we have a DC Studios HBO series for Lanterns, and this will be airing over the next 7-8 weeks or whatnot, depending on how many episodes there are. And yeah, Aaron Pierre is playing Jon Stewart. Kyle Chandler, Emmy Award winning Kyle Chandler, is playing Hal Jordan. And boy, oh boy, does he crush it as this role. And this episode is fascinating. It's got so much dialogue and details and things that just we can break down and talk about James Gunn's DCU and how it further expands what we know about his universe and also what we know about these characters, the Green Lanterns. And it's also interesting that we know that there's a Guy Gardner Green Lantern out there, so that adds a little element to this as well. But this will be airing Sundays at 9 p.m. and oh, I absolutely loved episode 1. So let's jump right on into episode 1, titled Pilot. And I don't know if this is called pilot because this is the pilot episode of the series, or if it's referring to him being a former test pilot, and him being truly just a pilot, and he feels more alive when he's flying in the sky, you know what I mean? And we opened in 1996 with a young Jon Stewart and his brothers watching the news, and they're watching Hal Jordan Green Lantern on 60 Minutes as we hear the news anchor saying, 10 years ago, no one on Earth was aware we were already under the protection of someone calling himself Green Lantern. Then, without warning, he made himself known, dramatically stopping a meteor from devastating Victoria Falls, as here now we have the first ever interview with a superhero. And Jon's brother and he has an older brother and a younger brother sitting there watching with him, but it really seems like Jon Stewart is the one who wants to be watching this Green Lantern interview. But so the news reporter said that he's been Green Lantern for 10 years before making himself known, and this was in 96, so it seems that Hal Jordan has been Green Lantern in the DCU since 1986. And in this flashback, he looks very much so like a younger Green Lantern. He has his Green Lantern suit on, and it doesn't have battle damage. It's not all worn. It's kind of more green and probably what it originally looked like. And Kyle Chandler has more of a de-aged, all black hair than the white hair he has when we see him. And the reporter asks Hal if he's nervous, and he's like, I don't get nervous. It's part of the job. Excited, sure. And she asks, who are you? And we see Hal has a nice clean Green Lantern suit and black hair on the news as he says, I'm Hal Jordan. And Jon's brother turns off the TV saying, you're gonna get us in trouble. And Jon's like, what the fuck? Takes the remote back and turns it back on. And he's like, go watch the window if you're nervous that Dad's gonna pull up and get us in trouble. So Jon turns back on the TV and hears the reporter ask, so what do you want the world to know about you? And Hal says that he was an Air Force veteran and a former test pilot, but really, I'm just a regular person like you. But the reporter's like, yeah, you're also the world's first Green Lantern. He's like, well, there's also that, but I'm a normal guy, and he very much so is just a normal guy. And then the reporter goes on to tell us more about Hal Jordan and that Hal's father was also a test pilot who died in a crash when he was just 8 years old. And Hal says that the Green Lanterns are like beat cops designated to different chunks of the galaxy, and that the test is only one question. Are you afraid? And the reporter's like, and you said no? And Hal's like, I did. Every kid's worst fear is losing a parent. Once that happens, there is nothing to fear anymore. And as somebody that just lost a parent a couple of years ago, yeah, kinda true. But we see Jon's father comes home and disciplines him, and his brothers are freaking out, he's home, and they're turning off all the lights, trying to pretend like they weren't doing anything wrong. But Jon doesn't try to hide anything. He just continues on watching the interview that he wanted to watch. He must have really looked up to Hal Jordan Green Lantern and wanted to be like him as a kid. But so Jon's father comes home, and he's a military man himself, and he comes home and disciplines Jon for staying up too late. by shooting an apple off of his head so that young John has no fear. And there's a bunch of bullets in the shed behind him. So this is definitely something that his father does a lot. And John's father is like, "Are you afraid?" And he's like, "No, sir." And his father shoots the apple and it splats all over John's head. And he hugs him and he's like, "Let's go get a burger." And I was just like, Jesus Christ, what great parenting this is. Father of the Year stuff going on. And I was just like, where is John's mom? Has he already lost a parent, being his mother in this case? And he's also lost a parent just like Hal, so maybe they, you know, have this kind of relationship that way and they get closer that way. But also he had a military father, so like very much so some similarities between John and Hal Jordan. But we cut from younger Jon Stewart to the older Jon Stewart, played by Aaron Pierre, training boxing, punching a heavy bag as he's all grown up, highly disciplined, and absolutely no fear. As we then see John is outside this gym waiting for his partner, Hal, who is late, but pulls up in a pretty sweet black old school car, which might be like an old Grand National, and he's like, "I'm late, you're not gonna give me shit?" And like Hal Jordan peels out, you know, and like burns some rubber as he turns around. And I love the banter between Hal and John already, as Hal's like, "I'm late, you're not gonna say anything? I'd be pissed," as he does like a burnout. And he's like, "I've been gone for over 2 weeks. I showed up late, hungover. You're gotta be a little angry." And John's like, "No, sir." "Mildly perturbed?" "No, sir." "How come every time you say sir, it sounds more like fuck you?" And he goes, "I have no idea, sir." Oh God, like every time John, like he's using all his respect possible, but he's still, you know, kind of sounds like a prick, you know. And like Hal's like, "You definitely are mad. You hate me, don't you? Just say it." And he's like, "No, sir, I'm not mad. I'm a very patient man." But already from this scene, as they were driving along and like the banter between the two of them, I was like, I'm already gonna love this show and these characters so much. But Hal tells John that he was off planet at Pharaon 4, and he calls it some shithole planet that was on the brink of war, and like they had to settle the peace agreements or whatever and make sure that the war didn't happen or whatnot. And he's like, "Yeah, you know, some punching, some agreements, you know, whatnot." And Hal's like, "We got plenty of time to train you, don't worry." And John's like, "With all due respect, we've been training for over 2 months." And John's like, "I haven't even worn the ring." And Hal's like, whoa, don't get held up on the jewelry, Junior. You'll wear it when the ring chooses you." And John's like, "I thought the whole point was that the Guardians chose me." And Hal calls them the Big Blue Bosses, and he thinks that they might think that he's a big shot, but you're just a fucking substitute teacher, Junior. And I was just like, oh, Kyle Chandler, so cold to Jon Stewart. But maybe he's just mad that, like, you know, he just got beef with him because he sees him as like his replacement, that like the ring didn't ask him to be replaced, just the Guardians of the Globe are like, "Fuck Hal Jordan, you should replace him," you know. So maybe Hal's a little bit defensive. But the Lanterns are fascinating because they're not just like superheroes with a power of their own. They have this power, but they're also like a part of this community and this like core of other Green Lanterns that are all over the galaxy. Like they're really fascinating characters, and I've always loved Jon Stewart ever since the animated Justice League series, but this show is already making me love Hal Jordan so much. But Hal says to John that you don't get up in front of the class until the ring says you do. And he's like, "You know what? All right, let's see." And Hal takes off his ring and goes, "You want it? Take it." And John's like, "Is this a test?" And Hal puts the ring on the dashboard and says, "There's a taco stand up the street 3 miles from here. I'll meet you there." And Hal jumps out of the moving car and like rolls down the street as he sends his beautiful Grand National hurling off the side of this cliff with John still inside. And I think they really did send this car off the cliff, as like it looks like they really did, at least, as like they're shooting it from below as like the car comes off the cliff. And like the way that it just kind of like smashes down on the cliff, like it feels like it should have been shot further, but no, it kind of like just kind of gravity boop like flips over on top of its hood. But so John's on the inside of the car and he hasn't worn the ring yet, so he doesn't even know if this is gonna work. And John puts on the ring and uses it to save himself, although they don't show us what he used, but they tell us in a moment what he did to save himself. But like, you know, so John survives, and we cut to him, you know, out of the wreckage, and he calls his father. So him and his dad still have a relationship, and he's like, Dad, he tried to kill me. He's like, he can't kill you. You're his replacement. You got the ring. Like, hold in there, son. Can you do that? He's like, okay, I will. You know, like, so him and his dad still kind of have a working relationship, you know, like not completely toxic from him shooting apples off of his head. But as John is walking to the taco shack, the ring starts to signal, and a construct of Hal comes out, and it looks like a younger Hal, and we find out that it's a Hal from 2006, so 10 years before this. But this construct of Hal comes out and says that he is a backup of Hal's consciousness combined with the sentience of the ring, and he's here to give himself a message. And this save file is of Hal from 2006, and John says that they are currently in 2016 for them. Interesting. So 20 years since that opening flashback where Hal was on the news coming out as Green Lantern, but also like 30 years since Hal's been a Green Lantern. And I believe it was 86 when Hal became a Green Lantern and got the ring for the first time. But he waited 10 years before publicly coming out to the world as a superhero. But he kind of had to after he seemingly stopped a meteor from striking a place on Earth, you know? So like that kind of had to have been real noticeable. But so what happened to Hal in this last decade from 2006 to 2016? Because the saved file of Hal says that Green Lanterns are supposed to upload every week. But Hal's last save was from a decade ago. So why hasn't Hal been saving his consciousness to his ring like he's supposed to? And why does he have this particular one saved from 2006? And the construct's like, oh, well, you have my ring. Do we get along? Why don't, if I'm training you, why don't you fly us to the taco stand? He's like, I haven't taught you how to fly yet, have I? He goes, and I haven't told you about the constructs in the ring? What have I trained you? You said I was training you. And he goes, why don't you give me the message for you? And Hal says that the message is, there's hail in Rushville, Nebraska. And John's like, that's it? And he's like, yeah, fucking I would know what I meant by that. And the saved file of Hal disappears. So I was just like, what the fuck was that?
Shit. Am I dead?
What?
You're wearing my ring.
Is that supposed to be funny?
Hey, did I do something to piss you off? Because if I did, I'm sorry.
You, Hal Jordan. Sorry.
That's right.
I must have a concussion.
Wait a second. Wait a second. Let's start at the beginning. Who are you and why are you wearing my ring?
I'm John Stewart, your trainee.
Lanterns don't have trainees from their own sector.
They do now.
What year is it?
2016.
Holy.
You want to tell me what you think is going on?
I'm a backup of Hal Jordan's consciousness combined with the sentience of the ring. I'm here to give myself a message.
So you are Hal?
No, yes, mostly-ish. Well, it's like when you store yourself in the cloud, only every once in a while, when you need it in the real world, Lanterns, they're required to be uploaded weekly for posterity's sake, in case something happens to us. I should have taught you this. I thought I was training you.
Yeah, I thought so too. When were you last backed up?
Evidently 10 years ago. Listen, I need to find myself. Where am I?
Oh, you're 3 miles up the street eating tacos.
Oh, good. You can fly us there, then. I haven't taught you how to fly yet, have I?
But so this Lantern series that we're currently set in is 2016 for the DCU, so this is interesting. So this is definitely before Superman. So I wonder if we'll get a time jump at some point during the show to show us like the present day timeline of like Superman, and like we also know Jon Stewart is supposed to be in Man of Tomorrow, so that will be like where he's leading after this show. So that's interesting as well to know. And I wrote that little line in this script before finishing the episode, so we actually do get to see a 2026 timeline at the very end of this episode, teasing what the rest of the season could be about, but we'll get there. As we cut over to the taco shop and Hal is signing autographs for the people, and he takes pictures with the patrons at the taco stand, and a little girl tells him that, like, my mom likes the suit, and he's like, well, tell her that I still wear the suit on special occasions. And Hal, like, sits down as, like, the owner brings food over to the table, and Hal claps for John as he walks up to the taco stand, and John's like, you want to kill me? And Hal's like, you wanted me to train you? I'm training you. Okay, so what did you make with the ring? And John says, bubble wrap. And Hal's just like, oh, you're a genius. And then the taco shop owner comes over and asks Hal, why only the suit on special occasions? And Hal compares it to when you're young and you wear a tie because you want people to take you serious. But when you grow up, you realize ties are just a pain in the ass. And the guy's like, yeah, makes sense, but also, like, it makes sense for, like, the character, right? Like, he's an older man, he's been Green Lantern for 40 years, the suit is uncomfortable and tight and hard to get into, so yeah, he doesn't want to wear it all the time. Why would he? You know, he only wears it when he needs to, on special occasions. At least the suit isn't fully CGI like Ryan fucking Reynolds. And at the very least, Hal Jordan, Kyle Chandler, has made me love the character far more than Hal Jordan, Ryan Reynolds, I'll tell you what. But so Hal asks for his ring back, and John tells him his message that he got from himself, and he's like, what did it say? And he tells him that, like, the hail is coming in Nebraska, and he goes, pay the check, and John immediately takes off and flies away off into the sky, and I was just like, wow, so evidently he did know what 10 years ago Hal was talking about with that little message. And he took off quite fast and looking like it was quite important, so this must have been a very important, urgent message. But why would his ring construct from 10 years ago know that? Like, there must be some weird time travel stuff that goes on with, like, the sentience of the ring. I don't know. But I love that, like, John is left sitting there and left to pay the bill at this taco stand, and he's just left sitting there like, motherfucker. As we see John has to then go to the airport and get a rental car and wait in line with all these other people and drive his ass all the way till Rushville, Nebraska, because he can't fly there like Hal did. And as John pulls up to the football field with a bunch of cops, and the officer there gives him shit like, you're a Green Lantern too? God damn it, like, what the, I thought there was only one of you. He's like, why don't you just make the call? And so the guy gives him a hard time, but inevitably lets him pass, but tells him to stay off the field. So John goes up into the bleachers and sits with Hal, and he's like, you ditched me. And Hal's like, I was testing you to see if you had it in you to get here on your own. And John's like, it's been hours, and they're still processing the scene. And the sheriff comes to talk to them, and Sheriff Kane is her name. And she says to Hal that he doesn't have jurisdiction here. And Hal says that he will, because he has a very strong feeling that those victims are going to be alien, which then would make it his jurisdiction. And Hal, like, points out some things that don't add up that will, you know, probably lead this to being like an alien situation. But the sheriff doesn't admit it, but she's trying to keep everything calm, she says, and she tells them to stay away from the news vans and stay the fuck out of her way. And Hal's like, God, she's incredible. And John's like, I think she hates your guts. But Hal's like, yeah, but it's the way she hates him. Right? Like, this woman hates him so much, but Hal's like in love with her. I find that funny. But John, like, stands up and, like, surveys what's going on. And he asks Hal, like, what's going on here? And Hal goes to start to tell him, but then he's like, what do you think is happening here? Why don't you tell me? And John breaks it down with, like, this insane attention to detail that he has just from walking in. He can tell that Rushville had just won a game-winning field goal. The kicking block is still on the field. There was also a fence that is broken. My guess is the home fans rushed the field, and this being a rivalry game in Nebraska, he thinks the other team's fans were carrying guns. And there's 4 dead in visitor team sweatshirts, but John's like, none of that explains why you think there is anything to do with aliens here. And John's like, hail in Nebraska? You were monitoring this very spot. We both know you know exactly what's going on here. But Hal, you know, has got like a short temper for his replacement, and he's like, this is my job, and I don't plan on dying for a very long time, so do yourself a big favor and take a deep breath. Ooh. And John just does it, just kind of takes a deep breath and just stands there like, I'm a patient man. I'm not frustrated. I didn't just sit in a rental car in an airport and drive my ass to Nebraska. Like, oh God. But John notices that one of the victims ditched his hoodie and is standing there trying to blend in with his friends. And Hal's like, I've been watching him since I got here. And John's like, did you tell the sheriff? And Hal's like, that's how you would like to play this? By all means, go respect the chain of command then. And John goes on to the field and the sheriff comes over like, didn't I fucking tell you to stay off the field? And she has already been watching this guy. So John's like, oh shit, did I just fuck up? And she's like, I think you did. And the guy bolts and makes a run for it. So John like looks back at Hal like, are you going to use your ring to like stop this guy? And Hal's like, what? I'll let you handle this situation. You wanted to take the lead on this, didn't you? This was your decision. So the guy like takes off on foot and John has to chase him down. And John chases him through the school, but then, instead of continuing on following him, he cuts him off and stops him by punching him in the face. And Hal's like, I need to interrogate him, but the sheriff's like, the hell you do? And so John's all tired, his hands sore now, and Hal's like, what? Do you want to go get a drink? So they go to a bar, and we see Hal Jordan use his ring to make a $20 bill so he can play Brand New Key by Melanie on the jukebox. And John looks at him like, did you just use the ring to counterfeit money? And Hal's like, no, I manifested money with the power of my will. And John's like, oh wow, but you couldn't manifest something to stop that guy I was chasing. So he's all salty about having to chase that guy down. And Hal's like, this ring is a dangerous weapon. When and if to use it. That's the whole ball game, Junior. And John asks Hal how he got the ring. But Hal says, you know how I got it, the old-fashioned way. I sure as shit didn't interview for it. And John's like, well, maybe you should have. With power like that, shouldn't you have to excel, prove yourself, instead of getting randomly selected? And maybe John has a point. And Hal's like, why do you give a shit how I got my ring? And John's like, because I think that's why we're in goddamn Nebraska. So Hal tells John the origin story of when he got his ring, and that he was a test pilot, and a green bubble came to him in the middle of the night and asked him if he was afraid. And Hal said, no, I'm not afraid. And it sucked him out the window and flew him miles away to the middle of nowhere in Nebraska. And he says that he knew exactly where he was because he was a fighter pilot, and he knew, he had good air recognition of where they went, so he knew exactly where they set him down. And it was just like 20 miles from where they currently are in Nebraska. And Hal says that the glowing green bubble set him down at a crashed spaceship, and the pilot was a bona fide fucking alien. Pink and bald and coughing up glowing in the dark blood. It was pretty fucking intense. And we see at the bar Hal had put a 20 into the jukebox, so the song keeps playing over and over again, and the guys at the bar are starting to get angry and mad at Hal, but Hal ignores him and goes on saying, so Pinko started talking, but it was coming out all clicks and gurgles cause he's dying, and he gives me his ring, this ring, and I could understand every word he said. Oh, interesting. So those Green Lantern rings are like universal translators between him and other alien species? That's kind of interesting. But Hal goes on telling the story saying that the alien said, my name is Abin Sur. I'm responsible for maintaining the peace and sovereignty of Sector 2814, and this is now your responsibility, as the ring has chosen you to be my successor. And then he said 2 more words, but he kind of whispered them, so I don't know if they were good luck or ah fuck. But Hal goes on saying that it turns out Earth's really off-grid for them, galactic fucking backwater if you would, and that a human getting a ring is a fucking fluke, and the big blue bosses didn't want a Green Lantern coming near this planet. And Hal had a feeling ever since that a shitstorm is en route, and Hal says that he had something to warn him that it was coming. And John's like, the hologram? The little construct save file of Hal. And Hal looks at him like, clever, not that fucking clever. But the jukebox plays over again, and the guy gets more mad, saying, Jordan, you think this is funny? If that song plays again, I'm gonna put you inside of that jukebox. And John puts together that Hal's plan here is really to start a bar fight so that these guys and him will get thrown in jail so he can talk to the alien that the sheriff just arrested. And Hal stands up like, it's gonna look like they're really kicking my ass, but I don't want you to step in. And John just real quickly is like, you got it, all yours, you can fight them. But Hal leaves his ring on the bar, and John picks it up, and he talks to a woman who's just a couple seats away, and she's like, are you gonna say yes? He didn't get down on one knee, but a ring's a ring. And John's like, I don't think he ever wants me to have this ring. And she says, but like, he gave it to you. And John's like, I reckon it's a test. And she's like, so you're a space cop in training? And he's like, how'd you know that? She's like, well, your partner's a space cop. So why'd he pick you? And John's like, he didn't. Our bosses did. And the woman's like, space cops have bosses? And John's like, everyone has bosses. But John says that Earth only has one Green Lantern, so he's just training until they're ready for him to take Hal's place. And she's like, oh, so you're the backup quarterback. And John's like, I'm patient. And she's like, no, you're not. And he kind of is just kind of like, you know, maybe you're right. But damn, so is John trying to push Hal out of this spot? Or is Hal like feeling like John is pushing him out of the Green Lantern spot? And maybe that's why they have beef? But also, if there's only one Green Lantern on Earth, what about Guy Gardner? He's supposed to be in this show too, but I thought he was from Earth. So does this show end up with John taking Hal's spot, and there's gonna be 3 Lanterns, like Hal Jordan, John Stewart, Guy Gardner, and there's gonna be 3 Green Lanterns on Earth? Or, you know, does something happen where there's only has to be the one on Earth? I don't know, I don't understand. Maybe there could be 3, and Hal Jordan, John Stewart, and Guy Gardner could each be Green Lanterns, but have their own jobs. I don't know. But so Hal's plan works, and he gets arrested successfully like he wanted to, but the cops slam his face up against a brick wall, and Hal's like all smiles because Hal's drinking on the job, and John is very straight up, and he was just having Diet Coke. But the woman that John was talking to gets up to leave, and she's like, it was nice talking to you, stranger. And he goes, my name's John. And she's like, walk me to my truck, John. And she just walks out, and John's like, looks around like, okay, did anyone else? All right. And he goes, and we see that he fucks her in the passenger seat of her truck, and then lights her cigarette post-coitus with the Green Lantern ring. And I was like, ooh, very classy little sex scene here for John Stewart. And also like, John Stewart fucks, hell yeah. Episode 1, proving that you can make your universe fuck. Like, I love that James Gunn and the DCU are with HBO, right? And they can do these R-rated shows and like tons of F-bombs and violence and blood and sex. Come on, Marvel, take some notes. Fuck them kids. We don't want fucking children shows. We want adult shit. But I thought it was so classy how like that whole scene went down, and like the two of them hooked up in this truck, and it was like a legitimate sex scene. And then like he lights her cigarette for her with the ring, and I was like, oh, that was so classy. But who is this woman? Like, John doesn't even know her name. So he's just having this, like, random hookup at this bar, he thinks. And it's like, what the fuck are you doing, John? All right. But so the next morning, we see John goes to bail out Hal. And we see that Hal's plan didn't work quite the way that he wanted it to, as the sheriff saw right through Hal's plan. And she stuck him in a broom closet. So he's been angry all morning. And he's like, all right, can I just get my friend out of here then? And she goes, no. Not till he gets arraigned. So she makes him wait to get seen by a judge in the morning. And then a William McCann comes in to represent Hal. And he is the sheriff's husband. And I was like, oh God, that's gotta be rough. Defending people that like she's putting away. That's gotta be an awkward relationship between husband and wife there. And the judge is like a complete bitch to fucking Hal. And she tacks on an extra $100,000 just because Hal said, come on. And she's like, now you know the price of each of your come-ons, Hal. And he's like, oh, you know, he goes like points at the judge. But Billy says his father will pay it, no worries. And Hal's like, strangers that offer me a couple $100,000 with no strings attached turn out to be bad guys. And Billy says, there are strings attached though. My father is a big fan and he would like to invite you up to the ranch to have dinner tonight. And Billy invites John, saying, you like barbecue? And Hal answers, Junior here's a vegan. He doesn't like anything that it causes enjoyment, but we would love to come to supper. Just the speed and quickness in which he was like, Junior here's a vegan. he doesn't like anything that causes enjoyment. Oh god, the banter between the two of them. I wonder if that was in the script or if that was just something at this point that Kyle Chandler was just ad-libbing about him. But so then John and Hal pull up to the ranch, and there's armed guards at the gate and a bunch of soldiers training. And John says that they have a militia, and it looks like damn Yellowstone army of cowboys here they have on this ranch. And Hal shows up, and he walks over to the sheriff and offers her a beer, and he uses the ring to make a bottle opener, and he uses the bottle opener construct to open her beer, and then blows it away like it's dust. And I was just like, oh god, that was cute, but clearly him and the sheriff are flirting somehow, some way. But the sheriff warns him that her father-in-law isn't the person to be in debt to, and she tells him to fly out of here because soon he's gonna wish he never came here. And Hal's like, nah, just doesn't take her advice at all and just fucking walks by her. And they go inside to meet Will Macon, her father-in-law, and he looked up John, saying that he is a Marine sniper, so just getting a little bit further background on John. But Hal's like, nice place, but Will says he's just the caretaker, but he's not allowed to say who his employer is because of his NDA. But Hal thinks that he bailed him out to fight some war against the feds because he thinks this compound is about to get raided by the government. And he's like, okay, so you want me to fight the feds for y'all? And he's like, you think I bailed you out for the feds? And he goes, well, what did you bail me out for? And he says, because of the aliens. Why the fuck else? So clearly, they know about the aliens? This kind of shocks Hal. But Will and Hal then talk as he's grilling on the grill outside. And Will says that Hal shook the world up when he first came on the scene. And Hal says that the galaxy is a pretty peaceful place out there. And Will's like, then why do they need space cops? And he's got a decent point. But Will here tells them that he thinks the guy in jail is a part of an advanced team of aliens sent here to colonize Earth, but won't say how he knows that information. And Will's like, my daughter-in-law says you're not that bright, but he clearly is. And Hal's like, well, your daughter-in-law is the one stopping me from interrogating that guy. And Will's like, well, I can see if I can help you with that problem. And Hal's like, in exchange for, but Will doesn't say. He's like, come on, let's go eat. It's very shady, this Will character. Jon Stewart notices a boy throwing a football, so he goes over to him and helps him out. And, he tells the kid to imagine the ball going through the hoop. Don't try to force it through the hoop. Just imagine it going through the hoop and throw it. And then that's what this kid does, and the ball goes right through the hoop, and he helps him out. He's like, how'd you know that would happen? And he leans down, he's like, my father used to shoot apples off my head. But the little kid gets distracted. He's like, Grandma! And John sees that it's the woman he hooked up with at the bar. So John just fucked a grandmother? Fucked a gilf? God damn it, John. And he's like, you live here? And she introduces herself as Zoe McCone. And she says, now you have my name. Right? So he didn't even know the name of the person he fucked last night, but now he's like, oh cool, I fucked the grandmother of this kid and the mother of the sheriff, or well, mother-in-law of the sheriff, and this other, Billy, the defense attorney, and the wife to fucking Will McCrone, the guy who runs this ranch. And so John's like, oh fuck, who did I just hook up with? But they cut past the dinner and we see them on their way out, and Will talks to them, handing them some leftovers. And Will says to Hal that he talked to Carrie and that since they have common interests, she agreed to let him talk to the prisoner in the morning. But Hal's like, that's the thing though, Will, I don't know what your interests are. But Will says 2 of his boys almost got killed last night in a shootout with men no one's ever seen before. How about we both want to protect the planet from anybody not born on it? Will would hate Superman now, wouldn't he? Born on Krypton, not a real super American, but also Clark's from Kansas. So do you hate Superman, Will? I gotta know. But this is also 2016, so this is technically before Superman, no? But Will, in the middle of this conversation, looks over at John like, I hope I didn't mess up your tofu, soldier. And he's like, no, sir. And he's like, nothing better than eating off another man's grill. And he walks away. And Hal's like, what the hell was that all about? And John's like, I think I slept with his wife. I definitely slept with his wife. And Hal's like, Jesus. And he knows? Apparently. Jesus Christ, we've only been here for 24 hours. I'm impressed. You know, like, oh God, this scene was killing me with the two of them.
What's that all about?
I might have slept with his wife.
Might have.
I definitely slept with his wife.
And he knows?
Apparently.
Jesus Christ, we've only been here 24 hours. I'm impressed.
The way that Hal Jordan just like, we've only been here 24 hours. I'm impressed, you know, like, good for you, man. I didn't know you could line them up and knock them down like that. You didn't even need extra time to get to know her. He didn't even know her name. He just hooked up with her in her truck in the passenger seat. Didn't even, like, go somewhere. Didn't even make it back to a hotel room. Nothing. Just fucked in the truck. Called it a day. Post-coitus cigarette. God damn it. Oh, John. Ladies' man, though. He definitely fucks. The next morning, Hal and John go to the police station. Hal goes in to question the guy, and he asks him, where did Harry Potter go to school? But the guy didn't know the answer. And he's like, who are you? And he answers, I'm Hal Jordan, Green Lantern, sent here to protect Sector 2814 from all other planetary threats, and you are one of them. And the sheriff looks and goes, oh, God, he's so full of himself. Must be hard to train under someone like that you don't respect. And John's like, I do respect him. And she's like, for real? And why? And he's like, he's fearless. And the sheriff says, if you got family, people you care about, you're afraid to lose them. First time I saw Hal walk up to me, I could tell that Jordan doesn't care about anybody and nobody cares about him. He's not fucking fearless. He's lonely.
To learn from someone you don't respect.
I do respect him.
Come on.
I do.
Why?
I don't know. He's fearless.
If you care about people, you know, husband, wife, parent, kid, then you're scared of losing them. First time he strutted up to me, I could tell Jordan doesn't care about anybody. And nobody cares about him. He's not fucking fearless. He's lonely.
Yeah, I like that little scene between the sheriff and John. It seems like they have like some type of relationship they're building here, like as more like co-workers, you know what I mean? Not like a sexual relationship like Hal and the sheriff have. You know, like they hate each other, but you can tell there's just sexual tension there. But so Hal continues on questioning this guy, and he's like, I'm just a truck driver that went to a football game. But Hal's like, but you can't tell me about the Boston Tea Party, Kelly Clarkson, Barack Obama. And I think Hal was about to say RuPaul's Drag Race, but the guy cuts him off and says, Barack Obama was the president of the United States. And he's like, that's it. A rural Nebraskan, that's the breadth of your opinion on Barack Hussein Obama? And the guy says, he was the 44th president, and there's some problems with his birth certificate. Almost like he was like Googling in his brain, like, facts about Barack Obama. And like, that all of Nebraska wouldn't have their own opinion about this guy. And Hal's like, holy shit, you are an alien. And the guy kind of like sits back, and even like the sheriff's like, oh my God, is Hal fucking gonna get this guy to admit that he's an alien? Like, and he damn well does. But the guy says, let's say you're right. And the sheriff's like, oh shit. And the alien goes on saying, if you are right, and I'm not of this salty, smelly world, a visitor who went to great trouble to hide himself well and learn the arcane rules of pointless contests involving balls that somehow captivate more attention than the deteriorating atmosphere or the hunger of its least fortunate people. But so this alien puts his arms up on the table, and he's like, if I had gone to such lengths, then I must be here for a very important purpose. A purpose that requires great discretion and secrecy. A purpose that would need to be kept from the likes of a galactic peacekeeping organization because it concerns the exact opposite of peace, that being war. And as such, if I were to fall into the hands of such an organization, I would be forced to take drastic measures to ensure that my purpose was not revealed, hypothetically. And Hal says, hypothetically, what might you have to keep your mouth shut? A cyanide pill? But the alien says, you're thinking very small. Then give it to me big. And the alien says that he has a biometric neutron device woven into his skeleton, and I'd be able to activate it with a thought. And damn, this interrogation scene became a tense standoff with this guy that, like, claiming to have a bomb in his skeleton, and you're like, well, he's alien, he could have anything, I don't know. But so the alien also knows that Hal's been here for 2 days, and he's like, did you bring your lantern to recharge the ring? And Hal says that I have enough power, and he's like, sure. But for how much longer? And the alien says, you should be asking yourself if I'm capable of releasing enough energy to eradicate this entire town. And Hal's like, are we talking or exploding? Because it's almost lunch, right? Like, he challenges the guy, like, he almost calls his bluff. And the alien is like, it almost seems like you want to die, Hal Jordan. Does that not violate your precious oath? And he starts to say the Green Lantern oath. In brightest day and darkest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power. Green Lantern's light. But as he says it, he's like, Green Lantern's light, and he's like taunting Hal and chuckling as he says it. And Hal grabs him and slams his face into the glass, saying, Harry Potter went to Hogwarts, you ignorant alien fuck.
In brightest day and blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power. Green Lantern's light.
Harry Potter went to Hogwarts, you ignorant alien fuck.
And I love the shot from, like, behind the glass of, like, the sheriff is, like, pointing a gun at this glass, like, it's probably not bulletproof, but, like, she's pointing it at Hal, and John just kind of, like, puts the gun down, and, like, the alien starts laughing as he starts to beep. But also, like, the actor in this scene who, like, is just this alien random, you know, one-off episode guest star, if you would, whoever this guy is that delivers this, like, monologue right here, and like the amount of words he said at the speed he said them with the precision that he said them, I was like, bro, this actor is fucking damn good. He's a hell of a day player. But so after Hal slams him up into the glass, he's all mad at him, the alien just starts to laugh at him, and Hal's like, are you beeping? And Hal's like, why are you here? And the alien says, why else? Vengeance. And Hal throws the guy onto the ground and, like, puts a bubble around him to shield him as he's about to explode, and the guy blows up as Hal, like, runs over and, like, tries to really, like, enforce the construct of this bubble, and it works, but it, like, blows out the wall of this police station, and a bunch of dust and, like, car alarms go off. But for the most part, Hal did contain this explosion with his construct. So the alien was not bluffing. He really did have a bomb strapped to his skeleton that he could activate at any moment. But this guy was 100% an alien as Hal, like, sits up after this explosion. All the glass is broken, and, like, John covered the sheriff, you know, and, like, he sits up like, I told you it was a fucking alien. And we then cut to 2026 for, like, the end of this episode as Jon Stewart has his signature goatee and he's driving a truck to Nebraska again, but it's snowing this time, and the sheriff is like, look at you, you've barely aged. And he's like, liar. And the son that John taught to throw the football, he asks, like, how's Noah? And she says that he's an all-state quarterback now. And John's like, anyone else know? And she's like, just the groundskeeper. And I'm like, uh-oh, knows what? As it looks like they walk up to the bleachers of the exact same football stadium that they were in 10 years previous in 2016, and it looks like maybe there's a bullet wound to the head, and John sees that Hal Jordan is dead, frozen to the bleachers in the almost the exact same outfit in the exact same spot that he sat on in the bleachers 10 years previous, which can't be a coincidence. But John then looks at his hand and sees that he doesn't have a ring on, and neither does Jon Stewart. So if Hal's ring is gone and John doesn't have it on, who has the ring? Right? Like, and that's like the end of the episode as it zooms out and credits roll as we hear Knievel by Scud Mountain Boys playing. Well, like, I was just blown away by this. Like, wow. So we're going to be jumping around, it seems like, from like 96 to young Jon Stewart, maybe to 06 to like that construct of Hal, and we'll maybe see the last time he saved his consciousness to the ring for whatever reason. And like, I would like to know why that 06 version of Hal knows that Nebraska is having an alien problem 10 years later. Like, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But then also, like, we'll have 2016 Hal and John as he's like training him to be a Green Lantern. But then it seems like there's going to be a whole portion of the show set in the present day of 2026 with Jon Stewart trying to solve Hal's murder, right? So I was like, oh wow, this is fascinating. And looking like Hal Jordan is not going to be in the future of James Gunn's DCU, like in Man of Tomorrow, unless Jon Stewart is able to go back and like save Hal somehow and like do some time travel logic shit. I don't know. I think I would like to see Hal Jordan, Jon Stewart, and Guy Gardner, all three of them being Green Lanterns in James Gunn's DCU. But like, if there can only be one Green Lantern, as much as I love Nathan Fillion's Guy Gardner, his bowl cut is so ugly, and like Guy Gardner's just a pain in the ass, and like his constructs are middle fingers. You know, like I think I would like to see Jon Stewart be the Justice League Green Lantern, you know what I mean? Especially if Hal's gonna be dead. But I love the story we're getting between Jon Stewart getting trained by Hal Jordan, and how like he looked up to him as a kid, but now Hal Jordan is like a aged 40-year veteran Green Lantern, and he's, you know, bitter and angry and like past his prime maybe, but like also a grizzled vet, you know what I mean? But also think about this show if Josh Brolin played Hal Jordan. I think it'd be a completely different character, right? So I'm actually never been more thankful that Kyle Chandler is Hal Jordan, because he is crushing it. The dialogue in the show, the writing is beautiful. I mean, maybe the visuals could be a little bit better and a little bit more beautiful, but I haven't been mad at any of the visuals in episode 1. Any of the constructs that they did show us looked fine. But so, at the end of this episode, why is Hal back at the same football field 10 years later, but why is it snowing now? Does that have something to do with the aliens affecting this area? They are in Nebraska, so I was thinking maybe it's just winter time that they're there now, but like the last time they were there, it was football season and nothing, you know, it wasn't snowing. So, you know, we don't necessarily know when in 2026, maybe it's December or something, I don't know. But you get my point, you know, maybe the aliens are doing something affecting the weather, or maybe it's just winter, but either way, who killed Hal Jordan and took his ring, right? Because his ring's not on his finger anymore, so whoever killed him is out there either posing as Green Lantern or just like took his property. I don't know. My money is on Will McCrone, and I think he is going to be an alien this whole time. But if not, like, who is the owner of, like, you know, he has an NDA. Who is the actual owner of his compound that he's like protecting? But such a wild ending with like that alien self-destructing, as this was like such a highly entertaining duo to watch, and like is just going to be so entertaining to watch them this season, and it's going to be so much fun to break down. Like I enjoyed myself throughout this episode so much, and as I was watching the episode back for a second time, I thought when I was like, you know, sitting there, I was like, huh, at the bar when they're sitting there in Hal's telling his whole like story, Zoe is sitting at the bar the whole time, just a couple of seats away. Is that just pure coincidence? Or is she an alien and she's like spying on them too? And then immediately I was like, oh shit, did John fuck an alien? And I was like, no, I don't think she's an alien. I think maybe she's just like the sheriff and they're both stuck in this like Yellowstone ass cowboy gangster family and they just can't get out of it. But I'm already like shipping Zoe and John and the sheriff and Hal. Like I kind of want to see them both fucking. But Jon Stewart does straight up fuck in this episode, and the fact that he lights a post-sex cigarette is just so fucking awesome. And like James Gunn in his DCU now fucks 2,000% more than the Marvel Cinematic Universe does. And like, I guess that's the perks of having HBO and having the balls to do more adult shows and not just making everything for kids. But like, give us R-rated Spider-Man, R-rated Marvel, R-rated Star Wars, R-rated DCU. I mean, like, this is what we want. Adults buy the tickets to go to the theater. Give us adult-centered content, you know, and like, DCU has Clayface later this year too. I bet that is a rated R, and that looks like a body horror creepy film. But hey, Matt Hagen's a handsome actor. I bet he fucks too. So, you know, maybe we'll see some more sex on screen in that movie. But so far in James Gunn's DCU, Peacemaker fucks, Vigilante and Peacemaker fucked in a three-way with a woman at the same exact time. So Peacemaker, Vigilante, and I believe also Rick Flag we saw fuck in Creature Commandos, unless I'm remembering that wrong, but I believe he also fucks. So I believe those are the only fuckers in the DCU at the current moment, but comment below if I'm missing anybody. But also, you know, like, my biggest question coming out of this episode, Will, like the owner of that property and like the sheriff's father-in-law, Will said his property he was just the caretaker for, and he has an NDA and can't say who owns it. And he has a very heavily armed militia protecting something. So what are they protecting? And like, who are the actual owners? Aliens? The government? Maybe, you know, like, maybe they're doing some alien testing here on this ranch, and the other aliens are trying to find their people, and like they're trying to hide them. Or maybe like Will and this whole family are all aliens. Like, I'm not sure, but he definitely gave me uncomfortable vibes, and I was definitely like, that guy's up to no good, and he's definitely like a big villain of this year. And like, the trailer for the next rest of the season looks fascinating too, so I think I'm gonna do a little trailer breakdown for that and try to put together and piece together where this season could be going and how it connects to the broader James Gunn DCU going forward. But I would love to hear your thoughts about episode 1 pilot of Lanterns, and I cannot wait till next week for season 2, and I really hope everyone else is enjoying this show as well. And I am just so shocked of how much I love this show. Like, I am head over heels in love with this show. I cannot wait to see more of it. I'm like itching at the skin to watch more of this. You know, I love Jon Stewart so much. Aaron Pierre is perfect casting, and Kyle Chandler is way better casting for Hal Jordan than I ever imagined. And I love these two characters, but the way that they're setting up this story and the mystery and like what could be happening, and like that Hal Jordan's dead, and they're like, all right, he's dead in 2026, so we have this period of time to work with him, and then, you know, maybe even after 2026 he can still be alive in John's ring, and John could have Hal's consciousness pop out and talk to him and like give him messages from the past or from the future, or however that works. But like, as long as John doesn't download his consciousness to the ring, he can still have a piece of Hal Jordan with him. I think that's a decent idea too. But comment below all of your thoughts. I would love to hear them, no matter how crazy they are. I would love to talk more about Lanterns with you, or about James Gunn's DCU, or just nerdy content in general. If anybody out there loved the animated Justice League series growing up too, and that's where you fell in love with Jon Stewart, comment that shit down below. I would love to talk more about this nerdy content with y'all. And make sure you guys go check out the trailer breakdowns that came out over the weekend from D23, Weekly Nerdy News on Monday as well. And make sure you stay tuned for future Lanterns content, and you guys hit the bell so you don't miss future videos, and you'll get the notifications when those come out. But if you made it this far into the video and you would like to support the channel further, the best way of doing that is smashing the like button, commenting down below, subscribing if you haven't already. That really goes a long way. And then hit share, copy link. You don't even need to post the link anywhere. Just hit share, copy link. That helps the channel grow too. And just watching the videos from beginning to end is the best way really to support your favorite YouTubers. And I highly appreciate anybody that made it this far into the video. And I'll see you gorgeous folks in the next one. Peace.